Let's start with a confession. It is the end of February and my spring garden is not where I thought it would be. It's rained every single day of 2026 so far, and the front garden looks like an absolute swamp. Half the beds in the back garden are not even built. None of them are built in the front garden. And my garlic is still in plugs because the beds that it's meant to live in don't actually exist yet. And if your garden feels behind too, I need you to hear this. I don't actually think it's a problem. Because I've realised something this year, that being behind only exists if you're measuring yourself against someone else's timeline. And most of us, well, we're building from scratch. We've got real budgets, real weather, and real life happening in the background. So today I want to talk about why my garden looks like it is behind right now and why that might mean we're actually doing it right. So let me show you what behind actually looks like over here. So these trays over here, they should definitely be bigger by now. And these garlics are okay. They're fine, but they're certainly not thriving. Our peppers, they're more thinking about it than actually doing anything. And I've got entire seed packets that I bought in January that I haven't even opened yet. I still haven't built all the beds, which means there are crops that I can't even plant because there's nowhere to actually put them. And the front garden, let's just say that if a heron landed on it, I really wouldn't be that surprised at this point. It is muddy, it's waterlogged, it's very enthusiastic about being a pond. And then there's our compost situation, which at this point is purely theoretical. So here's what I've got to try and remind myself. We are building this from scratch. This isn't a tidy reset from last year. There was no, I'll just top up the compost. We moved, we started again, and starting again is much slower than I'd imagined. Because in my head, we moved in September. I would have got the beds and everything sorted by October, compost sorted before winter, spring practically pre-managed way before Christmas. And if you love a plan like I do, you know how convincing those imaginary timelines can actually be. But real life, it doesn't actually follow the spreadsheets. And it's been raining constantly, like aggressively committed to the whole 40 days, 40 nights thing. And my polytunnel is considering identifying as an arc right now. We have had illness. We have had things break in this house. I've had a lot of things break in this house. We've had money earmarked for garden projects that have quietly been rerouted to very unsexy adult things like appliance repairs, a new old car, a leaking radiator, a broken fridge. And of course, we both work full time, which means that most gardening happens in the margins. It happens at work, it happens at weekends, and it happens in between everything else that needs doing as well. And I think sometimes we actually forget that. Because online it can look like everyone else is living in their greenhouse. But most of us are doing gardening around actual life, not instead of it. And if you are squeezing seed trays between laundry and emails, I just want to let you know that you are not behind either. You are just living. And I think this is the part we often don't say out loud. A lot of what we see online is peak moment gardening. It's the best tray, the best seedling, that perfectly framed bed that just doesn't show the muddy bit just out of shot. It's grow lights in January, heated greenhouses in February, seeds shown that were actually sown last year. People film content in advance, myself included. I'm not completely innocent of this, but also they grow in a completely different climate, or they're gardening full time, or they've done this for like 15 years already. And none of that is actually wrong, but it is different. So when you're building beds from scratch in a front garden that currently resembles a wetland habitat, you're not playing the same game. So when we say we're behind compared to who? Like, behind is someone in the south of France, behind someone with a polytunnel the size of a small airport, or behind someone whose entire job is growing food, or behind the version of ourselves that actually existed in our head back in September. Because that last one, that's the sneaky one. So here's where I've landed. Spring is long, longer than we think. We act like if it's not done by the end of February, we've missed it. But the soil doesn't care what the calendar says. The soil cares about light and temperature and whether it's actually ready to take a seed and get it started. The slow starts, they don't ruin gardens, and they often make stronger plants, less leggy, less rushed, and less force. It's worth remembering that self-sufficiency isn't a race. There's no prize for being first. There's just growing. So instead of telling myself or telling you that we're behind, I'm going to start telling myself I'm pacing. And pacing feels very different. So if your garden feels a little bit behind right now, here's what I would actually do. Not to catch up, but just to steady myself if I was you. Number one, take one tiny area. When I feel behind, I don't try and fix the whole garden. It'd take too long. But I do pick one tiny area, 1 square metre, 1 tray, 1 bed, and I try and have a bit of a reset. I look at it, I see what needs to be done, I try and clear it, I try and level it, I try and feel it, make it feel intentional again, because momentum doesn't come from doing everything, it comes from doing something. And once one corner feels slightly calmer, the rest doesn't feel quite as overwhelming. If you've ever cleared up one drawer and suddenly felt like a whole new person, you do know exactly what I mean. The second thing I do is plant something that shows up quickly. This is red and green salad bowl lettuce mix. So things like radishes, lettuce, peas, spinach, something that germinates without any drama. Not because I need the harvest urgently, but because watching something sprout reminds me that the season is actually still happening. I don't need tomatoes to feel like it's spring. You just need something green pushing through the soil. And usually, that's actually enough to shift my mindset. And plus, don't these peas look amazing already? I'm so proud of them. And sometimes, the best option is just to don't do anything at all. Make a cup of tea, sit in the garden, even if it's muddy, even if it's unfinished, even if it looks like a swamp. But remember that it isn't a race. The birds don't care what day it is, the soil doesn't care what Instagram says, and the plants that are meant to grow, they will grow. And being British, we know that there's not many things that a cup of tea can't solve. It's good. So here's what matters to me right now. It's not perfection, it's not speed, it's just priorities. 3 things. First thing I've got to do is actually finish the beds that need to exist. That's a good start. We're almost there. Not all of them though, just the ones that unlock the next step. And that's only a couple of beds, so I don't feel too overwhelmed. The second thing is to get the compost sorted. I'm already planning that one quite well. Compost solves more problems than panic ever will. And I already know where I'm going to get it from. The third is actually growing things and keeping things alive. The garlic in plugs, still alive. The broccoli is actually still going. And that all counts because small wins are still wins. And if you're looking at your garden thinking, I should be further along by now, maybe you don't need to be further. Maybe you just need to keep going. Because honestly, keeping going is probably more difficult than anything else. I think that's the part that matters the most, isn't it? If gardens become another thing we're failing at, then what's the point? It's meant to be something that nourishes us, not another performance review, not another spreadsheet, not another place where I measure myself against some imaginary perfect version. Because the world already gives me plenty of that, and it probably gives you plenty of that as well. Work does it, bills does it, life does it in general. The garden does not need to join in. And I know for me, especially with how my brain works, if I turn something I love into a huge amount of pressure, I will actually start avoiding it. And that's the fastest way to lose the joy completely. So this year, I am choosing rhythm over rush, pacing over panic, progress over perfection. Because self-sufficiency isn't about doing everything at once. It is about building something that lasts. And lasting things, they grow nice and steadily. So I'm curious, are you feeling behind this spring? And I don't mean behind compared to Instagram. I mean compared to the version of yourself, the version that you thought everything would be sorted by now. Because if that is you, I want you to know that you're not alone. I would genuinely love to know what's still muddy, half built, or sitting in a seed packet on the kitchen table for you. Not so that we can panic about it together, but just so that we can remember that most gardens don't look like the internet. They look like this: normal, in progress, muddy, still alive. And I know this hasn't been a normal video for us, but I promise next week I will get back to a bit more practical work, because when you're skint, busy, and honestly a little bit over it, there are a few specific things that we can focus on to make everything feel a little bit more manageable again. Not perfect, just manageable. So if that sounds like where you are right now, think about sticking around, possibly hitting that subscribe, and we'll reset it properly together. Just slowly.